All right, today on the Run the Riot podcast from Arkansas, we got Wesley Hunt. What's going on, Wesley?
Man, hey David, thanks for having me on, man. I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Oh man, me too. I just have to say, okay, so my first, I guess I would say even not even an interaction. The first time I saw you was 2017. It was the first time I ran the Arkansas Traveler, and there's the out and back section, the turnaround, and I remember running out there and seeing you coming back like way faster than, I'm still running out. But here's what stood out in my mind that stuck with me since then. I saw a guy suffering. I saw you like in the pain cave. I know that look, and you know that look too, but you were still pushing. I think it was on an uphill and I was going downhill and you were still pushing. And even though, and your time, I forgot what your time was. It was phenomenal. And that just really stuck with me to see you suffering like that. And so when I started thinking about, getting you on here, I was like, I got to tell him that. That was my first, like, that guy, man, he's pushing. And so, do you do that often?
Yeah, man. It's funny. That's why we do the thing, right? It's like I embrace that part of it.
Yeah.
I really do. I embrace that sort of pain cave or suffering. I like to think of it as how far can I push the threshold?
Yeah.
And in particular, specific to that Traveler, which was the last time I ran it in 2017. I had run it. That was my 5th year in a row to run it. I had learned enough about the sport and about myself to know right there at the turnaround, that's when you can start kind of sort of taking things for granted. And I kind of go in the opposite direction. That's when I push.
Nice.
It's starting to hurt. You're turning around. Maybe you're feeling it good about yourself in a way because you only have, you've passed the halfway point. But not only are you about to see all your competition.
Yeah.
So you got to put on a little bit of a show. Just also internally prove to yourself that you still got a lot left.
Yeah.
And every hill I run is a hill the guy behind me may not run.
That's true.
And that goes through my head.
Yeah.
Bro, I'm like, hey, I got this hill. So I'm proving it to myself.
Yeah.
And I'm also, the competitive nature kicks in about the halfway point, and I'm establishing that I got this. I like where I am. It hurts, but I want to hurt.
Nice. I love it. I love it. So just so everybody listening knows that I wasn't his competition by the time he passed me. So he didn't have to put on a show. He was just,
man, I just said, it's funny. And I know we'll get to this, but I just was talking to a couple of runners at the full moon. Somebody said, we ran full moon 50K last Saturday. They said, you looked so good at the turnaround. I was like, don't you have to try? I mean, in an out and back race, you've been there many times. You were doing it, of course, for yourself to establish, like, I can stay in this rhythm.
Yeah.
Like, I can maintain this. So the primary reason is internal. But yes, there's an external reason as well. If your competitive nature kicks in, you're going to start seeing your competition. You need to try to, send a message like, if you're going to run with me, if we're going to compete, it's going to hurt.
I like it, man. I like it. Oh, and I just have to say, congratulations on that win. For everybody listening, Full Moon 50K is a great race. It's hot. But it's at night, and you got the course record on it. And I saw a picture at the starting line when everybody's taking off, and you're right down the little, the driveway. You are ahead, and the look on your face, you were a man on a mission.
Yeah. I was, man, and I know we can circle back to the Traveler, but I felt real good about my training. It's one of those opportunities. You don't know. I was talking to my friend Stan Ferguson, the former director of the Traveler, recently. You don't know how many really great races you're going to have in you, right? Everything has to come together.
Yeah.
And I had a feeling it was going to be a good night. Training was going really well.
Yeah.
The weather cooperated. I've had some good turnover this summer doing some speed work, and I just sort of went for it. Thinking about, I know it sounds a little bit morbid, but thinking about like my idol, Killian Jornet's run or die, like, let's do this.
Yeah.
Take advantage of the pavement. I think I ran a 6:18 first mile. and
So crazy.
let's see what happens. But you don't want to miss those opportunities.
Yeah.
There's only so many of those sort of entire races where you can feel in that moment. Some people call it flow, of course, very famously now. But I had a feeling, and so I went for it, and it all kind of worked out well. And I was very fortunate in some ways, and I was very grateful
Yeah.
for that. I will say one thing though, I do claim the course record going back to 2012, but my friend Nick Lewis on the former course that started from the Lake Sylvia recreation area. So it was about a mile shorter.
Okay.
So he ran 3:42, but it was less than a mile, and he didn't have to do that final hill.
That final hill is crushed.
So I'll share it with Nick. He has the former course record for about but for the last 11 years they've started up at Camp Washita.
Yeah.
And my understanding is that it was the fastest one on this course.
Nice. That's awesome. That's good. Well, man, let's rewind. Let's go way back. So you're from Arkansas originally, right?
Yep. Grew up in a small town called Fordyce, Arkansas, about 70 miles south of Little Rock, about 4,000 people. Go Red Bugs. Small town life. I loved it. Had a good upbringing, kind of playing all the sports I could get my hands on.
Okay.
But spent most of my years there. I was a couple of years I was in Camden. My dad got moved around, but all South Arkansas, small town.
Yeah.
Fordyce. Yep.
So what sports did you do growing up, man? Just all the things, or?
I did, man. I played a lot of baseball and football.
Okay.
Soccer up through about 7th grade. We didn't have soccer after 7th grade in my town. It was everybody kind of bleeds football down in that country.
Yeah.
But lots of football, baseball, soccer, a little bit of tennis. Kind of did it all.
Okay.
About the only thing I couldn't do very well was basketball. I tried through about 8th grade, but with respect to running, I did run, but it was mostly with my dad to stay in shape for other sports. He was a very competitive 5K, 10K road runner in kind of the heyday when the boom was happening.
Yeah.
In the late 80s and early 90s. And I went to a lot of races with him. I certainly wasn't running his paces at the time, but I got to go and kind of be a part of that. And so a lot of my running was just kind of to stay fit. Sort of, he was always in my ear to stay fit for my other team sports, and did enjoy kind of it becoming a family affair early in life, though, getting to kind of go with him to races, the old Stuttgart Duck Run and the Pepsi race in Little Rock, and watching him compete and do quite well in his age group at the time, in a very competitive era of road running.
Yeah. Well, and he's passed it on to you, but kind of looking at your Facebook, it looks like it's still a family affair for a lot of those races, man. It's pretty cool seeing you. I guess your dad and out there just running, and he's what 60+ age group now, and still.
Yeah, he's 68. I told him he's getting close to that. If he's ever going to qualify for Boston again,
he's gonna
get that 70, right? You got to run before you turn 70, but you get the 70 qualifier. And I'm like, it's that time, Dad. We got one more Boston trip left in us. But yeah, it's always, and I'm fortunate with my children now, and with my dad and my brother, who sort of turned me on to trail running. It's always been sort of a family affair. It's been cathartic in a lot of ways when I'm in a low moment or need kind of a boost to do a race as a family, or to go do a long training run with my brother, or just get to talk to my dad about running. It's something that's meant a lot to me and to us, I think, and I hope at least a couple of my kids will pick it up.
Yeah.
I think they enjoy it. We certainly still enjoy going on hikes, and we've done some 5Ks, and I hope it sticks, because it's been great for me in a lot of ways, not just for the running itself. So,
well, when did you start actually, running just to run? When it wasn't for other sports.
About my senior, it really wasn't quite serious, but I think it was my senior. I mean, we did train a little bit. I won't tell you the time. No, I will. It was my senior year of college. I was lifting a lot. I was running a lot. I was being a college kid,
Yeah.
doing a lot of things I
Yeah.
probably shouldn't have been doing, but I was lifting. I was staying fit, but in a kind of a different kind of way. But I did decide my senior year to train for a half marathon and then ultimately a marathon. So I guess I was 21 and we ran the Memphis half marathon. I trained with a couple of buddies up in Fayetteville. I say trained.
Yeah.
We had no clue what we were doing.
Just go run.
And
just run.
and I think I ran it in like 2 hours.
Yeah.
And then I was thinking, I had in my head, I was going to break 4 hours at the Little Rock Marathon right after my 22nd birthday, and I didn't.
Yeah.
I think Governor Huckabee almost beat me.
Nice. Nice.
But I think I ran like 4:19. How about that? So, but I went to law school, and my final year of law school, things started to settle a little bit. Last year's kind of, you're starting to think about your career, and I started training again to sort of relieve some of the anxiety. But also I started thinking, I really enjoy this for sort of the anxiety management, but also it's kind of fun to push yourself. And I got down under 4. This is probably 2008. And then a couple years later, I pushed it down under 3.
Nice.
Really started training and getting after it. Went to Boston a couple times, even won a pretty small marathon up in Michigan where I ran my PR, which is like 2:45.
Sweet, man.
Going back about 11 years now, and got to go to run Boston with my dad, like I mentioned.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how it all happened. It started off as sort of post-grad school. Let's figure out a way to sort of, I'm starting to have kids. How can I manage a lot of these new feelings, this new anxiety, these new fears, this new life, while also doing something that I already sort of knew I loved.
Mm-hmm.
And it all kind of came together with the marathon racing for 3 or 4 years, focused on that. Ran Boston and New York a couple of times, and that's kind of what started it.
That's awesome. And that's kind of, my story is pretty similar. I started a lot later. I think my first marathon I was 36 or something like that. And just loved it, and did roads for a few years and then found out about a trail race and started jumping on the trail. And it's like, whoa. Yeah. So what was your transition from this road running to, to hitting the trails and then starting to crush trail races?
I don't know about crushing it initially, but I it sure felt hard. But my brother was out in Virginia. He's now teaching philosophy at the University of Alabama, but he was in Virginia at the time, and he sent me the I Run Far website.
Oh yeah.
And he had kind of gotten into some smaller like trail series out in Virginia. I think he may have even had done a 50K at the time. He started mentioning some trail running to me, but I had not done much trail running. I was back in Little Rock now after having gone to undergrad in Fayetteville, went to law school in Little Rock. And I had not done much trail running, but we started reading about it, kind of following some of the trail runs on kind of going around the country through I Run Far, and that was my primary source at the time.
Yeah.
And I didn't really know a lot of the local runners because I ran so much solo, but I had heard about the Traveler, probably through some marathon connections. I honestly don't even specifically remember the first time I heard about it. So I guess after running Boston the second time, this would be in 13. Yeah, in 2013, I kind of decided I was going to run the Arkansas Traveler as my first trail race.
Nice.
And it was my first trail race.
I like it.
And my training run was a long road run.
Nice.
It was like 48 miles, but it was a 48-mile road run was my sort of primary long run going into the Traveler. And it was quite an experience, sort of being a novice on nutrition,
Mm.
even being new to the community. I remember a couple people yelling at me, "Hey, go Podog." I was like, "I'm not Podog."
I know Podog. That's
Like we had the
just
short hair, and I guess I'll take it. I think I know who he
yeah,
is.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, I didn't know a lot of the community. I'd met a couple people, but so just for kind of being new to the community, but also like not knowing much about nutrition other than what I had kind of picked up here and there from my brother, who was more of a shorter distance runner, and then kind of reading articles online. That was kind of where I was,
yeah.
doing it a lot solo, just trying to figure it out,
Mm.
kind of how we all do and still do to a certain degree.
Yeah.
But that was it. That was the first traveler would have been 13.
Yeah.
And it was fun, man. It was a good experience. And then I was like kind of sucked in and couldn't think about anything else.
Yeah. So this is kind of neat. When I was looking at your, and I was wondering if that was my first ultra was a 100 miler in
Nice.
2013, except in South Louisiana. It was when it was the Cajun Coyote, and so I just jumped into the 100 for my first ultra too. So how
That's
was
all.
yeah, I just
No, that's awesome. I'm thinking like it takes a certain amount of like probably ego,
yeah,
but it
probably.
probably but it also is like they gotta have some self-awareness. You kind of know what you're capable of, I think, especially if you've been doing a lot of road running. And
Hmm. Yeah.
I think it's cool to kind of go for it. I wouldn't necessarily recommend it to everybody,
Exactly.
but
Yeah.
if you have a deep sort of running kind of background on the roads,
Yeah.
you can do it. You just kind of gotta suck up all the information you can
Yeah.
and be confident in yourself when you're out there and don't overthink it.
Yeah. And I put the work in as,
Yeah,
I ran over ultra distance many a Saturday, building up to it, trained on the course
right.
a little bit. So it wasn't like and I trained really hard for it. But so going into this pretty, your first, trail race, 100 miler, like how you mentioned nutrition a couple of times where, and I just want everybody to listen to hear. I mean, his first one, inexperienced, and you ran an 18:06. That's fantastic. So you probably like, man, I can kind of do pretty well at this. You play second place at Traveler. How did you suffer? I mean, did you make mistakes on nutrition, and what did that look like?
Yeah, I never sort of remember having like a moment where I had to stop or anything like that. I moved pretty well,
Mm.
but certainly I relied on I think the first year exclusively on gels and
Oh,
Gatorade.
yeah.
And so there was a moment where I couldn't really get anything down sort of late in the race that we all sort of have experienced, but certainly I asked for it because I, got the slushy stomach. I was nothing wrong with gels and Gatorade. There's no magic electrolyte. I was
Right.
telling my team that this morning, the but I needed something more than that. And so that first year I kind of went into it approaching it aggressively, but kind of more gels. I may have had a couple like salt tablets or something, even though probably wasn't even necessary, but
Yeah.
gels and Gatorade and just kind of doing the road racing thing. I actually ran the first year in road shoes as
Oh,
well.
nice.
I ran in Brooks Ravinas. I don't know if they still make those, but yeah. So I ran it in road shoes as well, and so yeah, just figuring it out. I felt pretty good running for most of the race, but I'd say nutrition was the biggest um, sort of learning curve where I had the most opportunity there, and I did pay attention to that. And I think also running at dark, as strange as that sounds, it's not. It's just different and
Yeah.
it's new, particularly out in the woods. I grew up in the woods to a certain degree, playing out in the woods, running around in creeks and Fordyce, but being out there at night and alone, and I didn't have a pacer.
Mm.
So coming back that last 15 miles through Rocky Gap, which is a tough section anyway,
Yeah.
um, with just my one very poor headlamp.
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't have a good headlamp either.
Yeah. That's funny.
Was difficult. I remember my Brock Heim, who coaches at Euler now, just left Arkansas Tech, the guy who beat me. He has like a pacer who's like glowing in the forest, like
Yeah, it's
covered in like glow
got like an
sticks.
airport lights on him or something. It's like,
And I'm like, no, I think he did end up dropping his pacer. So,
yeah,
but they're both like glowing in the forest. And I have like one, you know, probably $25 headlamp that I picked up from my parents' house or something. But yeah, I think the thing though you said that was key. As much as I want to sound like I wasn't ready, that's not true because I did put in the work.
yeah,
I did not know what I was doing with respect to the gear
hmm,
or the nutrition, but I knew how to put the miles in.
yeah,
And I have always and will always approach the sport with a certain amount of seriousness.
hmm, yeah,
I don't think fun and sort of being serious about a competitive race are mutually exclusive.
mm,
I think different people do it for different reasons.
yeah,
And I was serious that first year about my training. I put in a lot of miles.
yeah,
A lot of them were on the road. Um, I didn't know what I didn't know,
yeah.
but I did work hard leading up to that race and was already putting in some 100-mile plus weeks that first year,
Nice.
building my volume up.
Yeah. And there's a lot to be said. I coach other ultra runners, and, they during the first, half of the training, they're worried about, like, should I get on, similar trails or whatever. And I was like, well, you can for your long runs. We'll get there. But fitness is a huge, getting in as fit as you can is huge. And that's kind of what, we focus on in the first half or more of a 20-week training block, is just getting you fit, getting you efficient, getting you, just working on all that. And then we'll work on, specifics of the trail and everything else. So I mean, that's kind of what you did. You just went in, sounds like you were probably super fit, and that covers the multitude of sins during a race.
Yeah, certainly for about 60 or 70 miles,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, exactly.
But I think you're exactly right. And I think, and I've said this before, I think somebody who is generally fit and healthy
Hmm.
and running consistently can go run and do quite well at an ultra distance race, because that having that strong fitness base is
Yeah,
so important. Even having like a faster background and having some turnover and doing some speed work. If you overall have like some consistent fitness in your background, whether it's cycling or running,
yeah,
and you're interested in it, give it a look, because you'll probably do better than you think. Once you sort of start picking up things here and there about the sort of specificity that's required for trail. I mean, what you probably have a number, but to get your trail legs under you, you need a couple weeks, 3-4 weeks. It's good to try to
yeah.
get some trail running in
Oh
if you're
yeah.
about to do a trail race. And I love it. I mean,
Oh
you
yeah.
should,
Yeah,
because
exactly.
it's beautiful
Yeah.
and great for your soul.
Yeah.
But yeah, get your trail legs under you. You can do that. You can do that in a couple, 3 weeks.
Yeah, and I usually encourage it, try on your long runs on your Saturdays, get out on the trails if it's a trail, trail race, and try to, get familiar with that. But during the week, focus more on, and that's how I train. I mean, I'm running roads mostly during the week, and even sometimes on weekends. And but on the weekends I try to go hit the trails. Uh
You got to get it in when you can get it in too. I mean, like,
that's it.
life happens for a lot of people. I mean, if you look at the age of ultra runners, particularly, like, we're busy, right? So you got
Yeah.
to get in the miles. So whatever you can do, whenever you can do your runs, whenever you can do a little bit of mobility or core work, you got to get it in.
Yeah.
And the reality is some of that will have to probably be on the road. So I completely agree with you.
Yeah.
Just get fit first,
Yeah.
and then try to find a lot of people who love you, who will help free up some time for you and
Yeah.
let you go run in the woods for a few hours.
Exactly. That kind of ends up being my Saturday mornings. My wife kind of knows I'm just not going to be home for a while, like, so I get up early and I'll just be back around lunch
Right.
or sometimes after, it's like, yeah. Uh, so you did well, but I love this because you came in, you 2013, you ran it, and then, like, 4 years after that, man, you were like back to back to back to back. You came back, and, like, I guess you started putting together those things that you were missing, because you went from an 1806 to a 15:59 on the course. Now I know some years weather and all that's different, but that's huge, man. So what big changes did you make? That you attribute to that?
Yeah, and I really didn't I didn't really trail run much between those two races. I just really got locked in, right, and spent some time with my brother thinking about things, talking about things. Certainly at this point, meeting a few more trail runners, thinking about nutrition. It wasn't a crazy change on nutrition. I still used a lot of gels. I still was pounding the Gatorade like a crazy person at aid stations.
Yeah.
But I added some peanut butter. This sounds so silly looking back. I added peanut butter and honey sandwiches
Nice.
to my repertoire.
Yeah, that's great.
But I think Pete Perkins, he wrote it was like powered by peanut butter and honey sandwiches. But I added some, some solid food, stuff that I knew had a mix of like protein and sugar,
Yeah.
carbs,
Yeah.
and that I could get down and digest easy. And I think I did that at Powerline at about halfway through the race, and maybe again there about 2/3 through the race, probably 2 or 3 sandwiches.
Yeah.
I did bring most of my own stuff. I love the volunteers out there in the aid stations, but I did like to use what I had practiced with specifically. And so once I got through the gel action, I kind of did a little bit more solid food here and there, maybe a couple Cliff Bars or something like that as well. But mainly those sandwiches kind of were added in, and it helped kind of create that base.
Yeah.
Keep me from getting that sloshy stomach, allow me to kind of keep pushing and keep getting the calories in. That's the thing, man. It's not so much with the stomach issues. It's so hard sometimes because you still got it in your legs.
Yeah.
But if you can't get the calories down and you can't give your body what it needs,
Yeah.
you can't do. There's nothing you can do. And so just creating that base and allowing me to continue to get the calories in that I needed. Also started experimenting with just moving away, just some Coke at the end of the race.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Just at the aid stations, kind of just transitioning, trying some different things. So that was about it. Tactically, I ran a similar race. I had wanted to run 18 the year before. I did set my sights on 16 the second year because I wanted to win.
Yeah.
And brought my brother in. I don't use pacers a lot, but to pace me the last 16 miles.
Okay.
It's like, well, if they can light up the forest, we're going to light up.
That's right. Yeah.
So we kept pushing through Rocky Gap. We knew it was tight, but we fought very, very hard for sub 16. I think it was right at it. Yeah. I know coming down from Crossroads the last 2.5 miles, we were popping off some pretty fast splits to try to get under 16. And I'll say this, not to get us too far off subject, but we were running with a lot of motivation. Somebody that was very important to us, special to us. Our grandfather had passed away just a few days prior to that race.
Yeah.
And we both spoke at the funeral the next day. And certainly we felt like he was kind of just carrying us and pushing us. And
that's cool.
He was an old-timey coach and hard-nosed athlete himself, and we just kind of heard him pushing us, and it was cool. It was a cool experience to do that with my brother, and then go send him off to a better place the next day. Oh. So that was a very emotional weekend.
No kidding, to say
man. The least. But it was good to have Luke. Luke is my brother's name there with me.
Yeah.
We executed well, and we had strong emotions, but I think we let them kind of create a lot of positive energy and kind of push us hard there at the end.
You think part of it too, when you first do that distance, 100 mile, you start to discover that, when you hit that pain cave, when you start to hurt, that there's more beyond. Do you think, even that's a lesson that you pulled into that one? Like, I'm going to hurt, but I can still keep pushing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one thing I like to say is you can have, I think it was in a book recently how he described it, Do Hard Things,
Mm.
the book, about having a quiet conversation with yourself.
Mm.
And I think I was already doing that before I read that term, but
Yeah.
it completely resonated with me. That's what you always have to try to do.
Yeah.
It hurts really bad, but can you maintain perspective
Mm.
about the things in life
Mm.
that are more important, about what you've put into this and what everybody else has put into this to allow you to be here?
Yeah.
So can you have that conversation with yourself about why there's more inside of you that will allow you to keep pushing?
Mm.
Can you have that conversation with the pain you're feeling about the fact that it's temporary and you get to decide how you react to it?
Mm.
You get to decide whether it's going to slow you down or not.
Yeah.
But if you can maintain that composure and have that conversation with yourself, hopefully nobody thinks I sound like a lunatic, but I think it's really important. And to your point, when you're having that conversation, if you remind yourself of why you do it,
Mm.
what's your purpose? Is it other people? Is it to model the right way to compete and run? Is it just because you love it and you want to express joy on the trails, which is a dang good reason in and
Yeah.
of itself?
Yeah.
Why are you doing this? And usually, if you can have that conversation and not get too low in the negative cycle, you can get more out of yourself than you think. I come back to that because I truly believe it.
Yeah. I think most people stop at the first sign of pain, and it's in us, you know. I mean, all of us probably when we're first starting to run, you know, I need to back off, but we realize that I have I have this banner up here. You can't see it. Says comfort is a lie. And I remind myself of that, you know, because you've got to push beyond that discomfort. And there's so much more beyond that. Yeah.
And you said something good there. I mean, it's this whole mentality of like blocking out the pain or pushing it away, I don't agree with. I think it's embracing it. And I think we hear more and more about that. And yeah, it's it can be scary, but like it's embracing that sort of feelings. It's the same with like any emotions you're feeling on the trail, because I'm sure you've cried out there just like I mean, I have cried on the trail.
Yes.
So many times I've lost count, and in races.
Yeah.
But it's the emotions coming out. That's good. Absorb them, accept them.
Yeah.
They shouldn't make your decisions for you.
Right. I love it.
But absorb them and like, how can I use this in a positive way? That's the key there, is like, I don't think you try to block it out. I think you're asking for trouble if you do that.
Yeah.
Because then it's going to sneak up on you and bite you in the you know what. But if you can sort of absorb it and accept it and then do something positive with it, that is so huge.
Yeah.
It's so huge, because the emotions are going to come out.
Yeah.
And you gotta decide what you're going to do with them.
It's something about, you know, the long distance where you're rubbed raw and laid bare at some point there, and you have to have that's where you face yourself and your demons. And it's kind of interesting the way people respond. And you said something here, and I just have an observation that's pretty interesting. So when I was at the Moab 240, and you talked earlier about if you can't keep food down, you can't, you know, and I ended up having to bail because I was throwing up and I couldn't keep calories down. But I watched as the leader, the winner, who came in, and he was all smiles, super positive, kind of like Courtney DeWalter, you know, she runs on positive energy. Yep. And he, you know, and then second place was David Goggins, and his fuel's different. His mindset's different. He just comes in and he's like, you know, I'm done. It's like, you know, and he embraces, like, I don't know, almost, I don't know, negative, whatever. I don't want to even say negativity, but he uses that competitive nature to move him forward. But each of them kind of find what it is they need to do, you know, and maybe their why is just different, you know, and it looks different in how they finish, but they both use it to get to the finish line and finish the races.
Yeah. Yep, exactly. Whatever they're feeling, they're sort of absorbing that, and they're using it a way that allows them to get the best out of themselves. I suspect, I don't know this to be the case for either of them, but like they're also, he probably does that because he doesn't want the emotions to sort of drive his decision making.
Mm.
And some people can be more expressive, but still maybe some of this may be because they have a really good crew or whatever the case may be, but they can be more expressive, but still make sure they're making those good tactical and strategic decisions.
Yeah.
So some of that is just personalities coming back out. And some of that is like people just kind of knowing themselves.
Yeah.
Like if I'm going to make good decisions and execute my race, I'm going to have to do it like this. But as long as you're sort of absorbing it and channeling it in the right direction, I think that's what matters most.
Yeah. Yeah. So you mentioned a while ago about coaching, and I know you coach, and you teach also, right?
I do, and yeah, and I don't coach ultra runners.
Okay.
I will always help out any way I can if
Yeah.
people ask me questions. But I coach high school and
Yeah.
middle school cross country and also high school track at
Nice.
Joe T. Robinson High School. Go Senators! And we had our first cross country workout this morning.
Nice.
So yeah, I've been doing that. I'm going into my 4th year
Okay.
of teaching and coaching. I teach Arkansas and U.S. history, and I coach cross country and track. And yeah, I'm loving it. I'm about as happy as I've ever been, man. And at a really good place here, kind of out in West Pulaski County.
Yeah.
Doing my thing.
That's fantastic. I what a cool opportunity those kids have, and because all this that we've been talking about, you have lived it, you are living it, you know what it's like. The school I work in education too. I'm an IT director, and our cross country team. I always usually at the beginning of the season they get me to go kind of talk to them, and I try to go as many of their meets that I can. And like I see the look on their faces, and I tell them, like I know that look, that pain cave that you're in, and you just got to embrace that, and exactly what we've just been talking about. And you can give them that perspective, and you're not just talking something you read. You're like, you live that stuff, man.
Yeah, man, it is cool, and what a great resource that they have you to come speak to them. I think they do like it. I like to model it. I do a lot of running with them, and even though they don't completely understand the ultra stuff,
yeah,
they like following it. It's like interesting to them, and I always say anything counts, right?
Yeah.
Any kind of mileage, self-propelled motion counts,
Yes.
and like we can talk about that and we can model that, and then they can follow us. There's good trackers now at races, and they can see us suffering and being vulnerable too, like, right? And then overcoming that, which is maybe the best lesson we can share with them. So yeah, it's been really cool. Even had a couple runners come out and try some trail running.
Nice.
A young lady named Emma was at Full Moon, did the 25K last weekend. She's awesome. And that's really neat. That's cool. Rewarding to have something like that. And I'm very grateful for the opportunity after doing a dozen years in the utility industry. It sort of doesn't feel like work every day.
So what did you do before that?
I was in-house counsel for utilities. I worked in more like regulatory law. Like I made sure all the utilities were following the rules.
Gotcha.
Did that for a decade here in Arkansas and for a couple of years in Colorado. So yeah, I was a regulatory lawyer in-house for about a dozen years. Yeah.
All right. What facilitated the change? Just needed a.
Yeah, it was more about wanting to get back to Arkansas than anything else. And I think as part of that transition, I knew that I needed something different to sort of have a more balanced life. I had become a little bit of a workaholic out in Colorado, and I needed something different for my family, something better.
Yeah.
for my family that freed up some time and some of the sort of energy and passion that I had in me. So it's interesting though, going back to even law school, I had taken the education exams, what they call the praxis exams.
Yeah.
I'd considered going directly into education
Yeah.
right out of grad school. My grandfather, who I mentioned earlier, was my hero, and he was a lifelong educator, as was my mother as well, who's retired now, taught about 40 years.
Wow.
So it was always something that was there.
Yeah.
And I kind of knew I'd get back to it. It was just a matter of when. And when I was making the transition back from Arkansas, it made a lot of sense. It's something, first of all, that I needed.
Yeah.
And it also was just a really good opportunity out here in a place I love, West Little Rock around Pinnacle Mountain, with some good access to the Ouachita Trail.
Oh, man.
And it kind of all worked out about as well as I could have sort of expected. Certainly sort of exceeded my expectations in a way.
Yeah.
I find myself here, and I'm very grateful.
Well, I want to get back to racing in a minute, and some of these races that you've done and we both done. But you said something about balance, and it's almost kind of comical that we're doing this thing that seems so far out of balance, like just out there, running these crazy long distances. But at the same time, we have lives, we have families, we have jobs, and do you do like I do, to fight to maintain that balance, to be a good dad, to be, a good teacher and all that? And how do you cope with that?
Yeah, absolutely. And in this particular time of my life, when I had sort of moved out to Colorado with the expectation that it was going to be this like euphoric experience in the mountains.
Yeah.
We tend to have obsessive personalities. Some of us do. I don't want to stereotype the entire ultra running community, but many of us do. And I certainly do. I'll speak for myself.
Same. Yeah.
And that carried over into the workplace, and I kind of got out of balance with some of the hours I was putting in. Actually, it wasn't running per se. I actually wasn't doing as much running for the 2 years I was out there.
Yeah.
Still doing some hikes, trying to get the kids out in the mountains when I could. But I kind of got out of balance with sort of the work-life balance. As I transitioned back to Arkansas, I made it a priority to try to kind of find that again.
Yeah.
Both the work-life balance, but also balancing my running in a sort of healthier, more sustainable way.
Yeah.
You don't have to run 100+ mile weeks to be competitive, and you certainly don't to be happy. And
that's right.
And so it was work-life balance I needed, but also sort of learning to run and train in a sustainable way that fed into that work-life balance, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And it also, the timing worked well because I'm not getting any younger. So being able to think about training in a more sustainable way, it all worked nicely at kind of that point in my life, coming back to Arkansas and transitioning to a sort of a new career.
Yeah. What is you just said something, because and it's, I'm older also. I'll be 49 in September, but and
you look good, man.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. I'm trying. But I'm slowing down a little bit, and I've had to make adjustments. But what does your training look like? I mean, I think you're 40.
What's that?
You're 40?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
40. Yep.
Yep.
So I think it's about finding the number. This is more and more of the runners will back this up. I think it's about finding the number that works for you and that's sustainable and what kind of that looks like. And for me, that number where I can kind of stay healthy, feel good, has trended around 70 to 90 miles.
Okay.
Like when I start kicking in up into the training.
Yeah.
If I'm not training for any specific race, which is usually only a couple of months a year.
Yeah.
But in those, I may drop down to 50, 60 miles. But during this sort of build up over the summer, toward Full Moon, but ultimately toward Leadville, which is in 3 weeks, and then the Traveler in October, which I'm going to return to after a
All right.
5-year
All
hiatus.
right.
That's looked more like 70 to 90 in a high week, but I don't go much above that, man.
Yeah.
And a lot of easy running, and that's, I have to feel like this is one of my big teaching points with my own runners too. Like, easy means easy, right?
Yeah.
And so I still do a fast tempo run every Tuesday.
Okay.
Generally, and certainly try to do something longer, usually in the 3.5 to 4.5 hour range on the weekends. But if you add that up, 4.5 hour long run, a tempo run on Tuesdays, I think I run 4 other days and take Mondays off. So 6 days of running, 70 to 90 miles. That's kind of my standard training block now.
Yeah.
I was a little more focused on speed early in the summer. Thought that would be good for the turnover.
Yep.
Particularly in the summer when it's so hot, you can do some shorter, faster stuff.
Yeah.
So threw in some sprints here and there as part of some of my easy runs. But generally speaking, 4 days of easy running, a long run, and a tempo on Tuesdays, or some type of speed session.
Right. Yeah.
I think that's good for the running economy, and reminds you that you can still move a little bit of force.
Yeah, I like it. No, that's fantastic. And that's the thing. You've got to find, what works for you, and at what point your body starts breaking down, and getting injuries and things like that. You just gotta play with it.
And that's the thing. Like, you got to pay attention. You got to be self-aware. I've also been trying to do more stretching and mobility work, which is all new to me.
Yeah.
Like, what other tools can I add to the arsenal?
Yeah.
But like, I don't do a ton still.
Yeah.
And I've never really been into strength training too much. I do core and push-ups and things like that, a lot of like body weight stuff. But adding in some of the mobility and stretching, I think has been helpful.
Yeah.
Even minimal amounts goes a long way, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Just kind of doing that in front of the TV at night, continuing with the core every other day. But I keep it pretty simple. I think it works for me.
Yeah.
I don't want to overthink it. But I also, I do what I need to do to get ready. And when I do creep up toward 90, 100 miles, you feel it, right?
Yeah.
You don't want to walk around feeling fatigued. And if you start feeling like that, you may need to check yourself there.
Do you do like a deload week, a recovery week when you get your miles like that after every 3-4 weeks?
I sure do. Yeah. I believe in the periodization, and I don't get too deep into the science, but I do think you have to take that week off. Let your body sort of recover and adapt, and any kind of micro tears in your muscles or whatever you call them. You got to let that heal, and you got to be kind to yourself. I also think that's why it's good. I agree with what most of the real experts like you and others say, that I think you got to take some time off a couple times a year, maybe even a month. I don't think you have to go crazy with it. And I think you can still run and stay relatively fit without losing a lot. Just give yourself a break, and just kind of recharge, reboot.
And mentally too, because we want to continue to enjoy this. And I got to the point before when I went training where I was like, this is, and let's face it, sometimes you got to make yourself get out there, when it's as hot as it is now, man. It's like Hades out there. But, but when you're just constantly not enjoying the run, and you just need that mental break where you don't have to, you just get to where you want to again,
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why it's good to build that in. And, if you get to that point, sometimes you just got to tell yourself, I'm going to run any distance and any speed I want for a few days. And I'm going to, maybe you're going to go to some new places, some different places. Like,
that's good.
Do something to break it up. Like, let's break up whatever's going on in this crazy brain and life. And try a new route. Easy. Some people say do it without a watch. That doesn't matter as much to me as long as you're not staring at it.
Exactly. Yeah.
But do go for a run, do whatever distance, whatever pace you want, maybe try something different to break it up.
Yeah.
I think that can be a little tool in your tool belt as well.
Yeah. Well, I'm pumped to hear that you're going to Leadville. I did not realize that you were going to be doing Leadville this year. Real quick, because we got to go talk about Western States. But what are you doing to deal with altitude, man? Are you relying on heat training? Are you sleeping in an altitude tent? What you doing?
Yeah, great question. not enough. So and probably not enough vert either. Although I do look for hills when I can.
Yeah.
But heat training. I know it's not perfect.
Yeah.
But I do know enough.
Mm-hmm.
And I do consult with my own coach now. It was a big step for me, but I do know enough to know that there are some similar adaptations from heat training that can apply to altitude.
Yep.
Leadville's the first week students return.
So
I don't have the luxury of going out for 2 weeks. I'll be flying out on Thursday night.
Yeah.
And I'm even going to sleep in Denver that night.
Yeah.
So we're going to drive up the day before and try to get in and out.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping some of this heat training I'm doing, and I embrace it.
Yeah.
I'll go out in the afternoon and embrace the heat. I hope that helps some.
Mm-hmm.
I know it's not perfect.
Yeah.
I'm not suggesting that works like that, but I do know there are some adaptations with
absolutely
blood volume that apply.
Yep.
Again, without being able to explain all the science. So that's what I'm hopeful for. And then just being fit, feeling good.
Yeah.
What's this line my brother said? I'd rather be over recovered and undertrained, right?
Yeah.
So like thinking about that, like I've put some pretty good work in this summer.
Yeah.
Making sure I feel really good on that starting line and trusting sort of, dare I say, my old man strength.
Yeah.
Get me through it. And this is a little bit of a second shot for me. I don't have any like goals or thoughts about winning at Leadville, but I do want to compete and do better than I did back in 2015.
Yeah.
When I had never been to Colorado to run a race, and I squeaked in just under 25 hours to get the big belt buckle. And I fought hard for it. But I felt then in 2015 after my second Traveler win that I had 18 hours in me at Leadville, and I still think that's out there.
Yeah.
I think 18 to 20 hours is I don't mind even saying that or thinking about that, because I think if it doesn't happen, you certainly should have big goals and you should fight for everything you get.
Yeah.
But I think it's a more runnable course than some people think.
Yeah.
And runnable courses tend to be better for me. And I think if I'm really fit on the starting line, if I'm smart about my nutrition and I can actually be conservative, which I always say and then I don't do.
Yeah.
I think I have a shot at having a pretty good day out there and being more in that 18 to 20 hour range. At least that's what me and my brother are going to try to pull off. He's going to go out there and crew me.
Nice, man. I'll be cheering you on, man. And I have to do, anytime I race in Colorado, I've done, some hundreds out there and some 50 milers, and I just got to show up and just try to be fit and do what you can, man.
I know people talk about going out for 2 weeks, and I say it must be nice.
Exactly. I was running Silver Heels, and I'm running with this guy from France at the beginning, and he's like, I forgot how it came up, and he says, when did you get here? And I was like, yesterday. He said, I've been here 2 weeks. And I was like, I can't, I just can't do it. Yeah.
I just want to have a few hours after the race to be able to go get some pizza and maybe like a cold beer before I have to go home.
Yeah.
That's more important than the front end. It's like, I never want to have to rush to an airport. And unfortunately I will have to go home Sunday, but it's a late flight Sunday. So
you'll be all right.
Maybe we can go to that famous pizza place in Leadville and at least get a few hours of relaxation.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's cool, man. That'll be good. And then getting back to Traveler, I didn't realize you were jumping in again, man. That's pretty awesome. That'll be fun to get back to it.
For sure. Yeah, I'd actually kind of planned it, man. I ran it 5 years,
Yeah,
and I knew I wanted to take a little break and try some different things. I've really never nailed out of state races. I've run pretty well regionally, and I wanted to try some things.
yeah,
I still haven't really nailed a lot of races outside of the region. Even Rocky Raccoon, which I ran well a couple of
yeah,
years
yeah,
ago and finished sixth, but that's a regional race. I
yeah.
drove down, and
That's a
so
competitive
still
race.
I still think there's like a lot of room for growth, even though if I can run smart and train in a sustainable way at some of these out of state races when I do them, which is pretty rare.
Yeah,
But when I do, I think if I'm smarter and I kind of rely on experience and continue to learn every race, I still think there's some opportunities there.
yeah.
But I am going to have to kind of be smarter about these out of state races, and I'm going to have to be a little bit more conservative because you know how it is with sleep
Hmm.
or altitude
Yeah,
or being in a new environment.
yeah,
You can't treat that the same way you treat a race in your own backyard.
yeah,
But cycling back, I'd always planned to kind of take a few years off and run it again when I was 40,
yeah.
and that's what we're going to do this October.
Nice.
Unless something really bad happens at Red Bull.
Yeah, yeah. Oh man, that's gonna be fun. What's funny is you were talking about competition. So the year that I talked about earlier, 2017, when I ran it, when I came out, you pop out onto the road and that last little bit, there was a lady standing there and she said, "You're looking good. I think you can catch the guy who's ahead of you." And he was looking rough. And so I should have turned my headlamp off, but I didn't. So I just started running, and it was Daniel Arnold and his pacer. I didn't have any pacers. And so I saw his pacer's head whip around, and then I saw them both start bouncing, and so I made him sprint to the finish. And afterwards he was on the ground, and I came in like 30 seconds after him. Once I hit that hill, I was like, oh, there's no sprint left. But the
Oh,
next
that's
year,
great. Yeah.
without you there, and he came back and just crushed. Like I was way behind him on the next, in 2018. Yeah.
Yeah, Dan, that's a good story, and he's a good one. He just had a pretty good battle with Cliff last
Yeah.
week at Full Moon too. They were within a minute of each other most of that race.
That's
But
awesome.
he's a friend and a very consistent,
Yes.
steady runner. I love his mind.
Hmm.
I love how he doesn't try to run outside of himself. I think it's a good message.
Yeah.
He's pretty quiet and may not tell you, but I'll tell you he knows how to run within himself and run his own race.
Yeah.
And I think all of us can learn lessons from runners like that,
Yeah.
that are that self-aware and they can run in that controlled way. They can still push when they need to. They don't let anybody else dictate their race.
Yeah. I've seen him suffering in a bad place and then just come back
Yep.
and do well. I was like, oh, Daniel, man, he's in bad shape, and then he'll pass me up. He's doing
Yeah.
good. Yeah.
Those battles are fun though, aren't they,
Oh
man?
man, that was yeah. That cracks me up, man, because it was just so fun, and I should have turned the headlamp off, man.
Yeah. That's back to my first Traveler when me and Brock were playing headlamp games on the street. I think we ended up being a little over a minute apart. I think it was the closest
Oh,
Traveler.
really? That's crazy, man.
Closest Traveler in the 31-year history or whatnot, and it was fun though, man. We passed each other a couple times, headlamp games, and you don't get a lot of those either. But when you get them, they're fun.
That's fun, and a lot of people. It's all in. I mean, I love racing with my friends. Like, and if they beat me, man, fantastic. If I gave it my all and you beat me, and it's vice versa. I think healthy competition, man, it's good.
Yeah, I think there's a picture after that race. I didn't know him real well. It looks like I'm trying to eat him. I like have my hand on his shoulder.
Yeah,
I'm like in his face. But
that's great.
yeah,
Yeah,
like my biggest thing is like you said, it's healthy competition. If just make them hurt if they're going to beat you,
yeah, yeah. That's
or
it.
that's
Earn
it.
it. Earn it.
It's like make them earn it, and if they do, go shake their hand.
Yeah,
And like I love it.
yeah. Same.
Like let's do it. And if you're going to beat me, let's hurt together a little bit, but I'm going to make it hurt a little bit. And that's what it's all about. If you want to not use the word hurt, make them work for it, make them get everything out of themselves, because
yes,
that's what we should try to be doing. At the end of the day is getting everything out of ourselves that we can and having a good experience.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so tell me about your Western States experience, man. I have to say, and I put it out here all the time, and they say I shouldn't say it because people get mad. I got in with 2 tickets in 2019, and that's the reason I ran Traveler in 2018. It was a month after I ran the Tahoe 200. I ran Traveler, and it was not I suffered because of it, but I got my ticket, and that got me in. So, but anyway, tell me about it, man. How did it unfold for you?
Yeah, so it was good, man. I mean, so I drove cross country solo, and then I had my boys. I got 2 sons and 2 daughters. They flew out with my dad to support me, and then my brother was already out on a family road trip, so their family joined us as well. So a lot of fun. We all sort of kind of met there together in Olympic Valley, I think is what they're calling it now. For the start of the race, and it was great. It went off, the race itself. We got there a couple days before the race. Went off really well, felt good. Probably pushed too hard up the hill early. Knew it was going to be a hot day.
Yeah.
I say I'm going to be conservative at these altitude races.
Yeah.
And like I'm running like, Camille or something. Like, what are you doing? Like, it doesn't matter. Like, she's better than you.
That's awesome.
Anyway, but we're everything was going pretty well. Like, having a pretty good day, I'd say, roughly through like the halfway point. Certainly, the heat started sitting in on me. Good with the heat, but really, it was nutrition. Like I said, you learn every race.
Yeah.
And I started having some sloshy stomach.
Yeah.
I was using like a mix of like, for my solid food, I was doing some like peanut butter and some like bars, like Cliff bars or like Martin bars, and just trying to kind of supplement. But I think where I made the biggest tactical error, and I'll get through the race, but I just kind of want to say this, not resetting when I needed to reset. Like, sometimes you have to be flexible enough with your plan to push pause, maybe even empty the tank. I'm not necessarily suggesting what that always has to look like. But at least taking in what you need and taking in a little bit more time. And I just didn't reset early enough, David. I eventually did, because Stan Ferguson said, okay, time to start over. But I didn't see him until mile 62. I was out there by myself through Michigan Bluff. I probably should have reset coming out of one of the canyons there at Michigan Bluff, which is about mile 55. And I didn't. I kept pushing because I wanted to see those people I loved so much. The family, my children, my good friends. And when I got there, I was already a little behind, too far behind, and we had trouble pushing. I mean, I was still running pretty solid time there at Forest Hill. But I didn't have much left because I couldn't get anything down. And that's where you want to start pushing. And that's what I mentioned earlier. It's like, it's so frustrating because you're just depleted and you don't have the energy you need, even though you know your legs are okay.
That's rough, man. I hate that feeling.
So we're like even walking some of the like gradual downhills. We're running when we can. And before we got to the river, probably mile 75 at one of those little aid stations, heading down toward the river, I think the river's 78.
Something like that.
He said, we're going to start over. And we paused, and I listened to his sage advice, and we emptied the tank. We spent a little time. We kind of hiked down to the river, just kind of enjoying it at that point. Like, let's take this in. Let's cross the river. Let's be grateful.
That's good.
And then down at the river, ate a lot of soup, tried to kind of reset. got to see my crew run last time, and we made a decision there, like, hey, your A goal may be out of the picture.
Yeah.
But if we can run most of this last 20 miles, we can still come in under 24 hours.
Yeah.
And we didn't come out here to not give it everything we have.
Yeah.
So we reset. We probably took close to 20, 30 minutes,
Wow.
which may be like a record for me.
Yeah. That's a lot of time when you're racing, man. Yeah.
Actually, I wanted to go earlier, but they were like, no, not yet. They like knew the splits for 24 hours.
Yeah.
They were like, no, you're going to be able to run if you reset. Like my brother and my nephew, Henry, like they knew me.
Yeah.
And so we did that, and I was able to run. Stan and I were able to run most of the last 20 miles pretty steady.
Yeah.
And had a really, really nice finish there.
That's good.
Under 24, not the time I wanted, but again, those ones you work so hard for are sometimes the most rewarding.
Yeah. And
God willing, I will get another shot at it.
I like it. I like, well, and Devil's Thumb, dude, and I just remember the canyon, it's so hot, and then climbing out of that thing, I was looking at my time and I was like, that's the slowest I think I've ever had in a race, man.
I know, man. Yeah. And that's the thing. It's like being flexible enough with your plan, having not seen the course too, for me too, the same deal. It's like, you can't really fully appreciate how hard that climb is. If you're coming up out of Devil's Thumb, you may need to spend a little bit more time in the aid station. I was doing pretty good with the ice treatments and things like that.
Yeah.
I don't think, frankly, I was taking in enough calories.
Yeah.
And you cannot get behind. And then it just got a little sloshy, and had to do the best we can. And I stand by that now. I did it at Lovett this February as well, and I've seen the greats do it. I now that you can actually see these races, you can see Courtney do it or see Killian do it.
Yeah.
They will take 10, 15 minutes if they need it.
Yeah.
They don't do it every aid station. Sometimes they're a machine. Sometimes they skip an aid station. But I've seen them sit down and eat a bowl of food and reset and take the time they need. And maybe it's only once a race. Maybe it's twice a race.
Yeah.
When you need that, you need to do it, and you need to get right. Because if you've trained right, that will allow you to keep running.
Yeah. That's good advice, man. Everybody listening, I tell my runners, I say, aid stations can make you or break you. Do what you need to do. You absolutely do what you need to do. Don't take any longer than you need, but if you need to stay and reset. Same thing, some races, like Tahoe, I was falling asleep while I was running. I didn't want to, and finally I need to take a nap, a couple of days in, and I took a nap, and then I was so efficient after that. I made up the time. If I'd done that sooner and been proactive about, a little trail nap or something here and there, and that's just one thing, but like you said, just taking that, whatever you got to do to fix the issue, it's worth fixing.
You got to be super honest with yourself, right? Because you do not need to take more time than you need when you don't need it. It's what you need. Like, I am a big proponent. Anybody who's been at a race with me, I am pretty quick through aid stations, and I've been known to skip a few.
Yeah,
but as you sort of learn and grow, particularly on the nutrition piece, or if it's a really hot day or whatever the case may, when you need it, take it.
Yeah.
You may not know exactly when that is, but you probably should plan for that to be somewhere between the halfway and 3/4 point, particularly if we're talking 100 milers or 100 Ks.
Yeah.
Where you may have to reset, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Because you've been efficient everywhere else. You can be efficient, hopefully, once you reset. Trust your legs, trust your training, trust your crew or coach.
Yeah.
You got one you believe in. And I think that's one of the newest things I'm trying to sort of incorporate into my own racing. If I need that, I'm going to take it. Like I said, I did it at Lovett, and I'll do it again at Leadville if and when I likely need it.
Yeah. Well, congratulations at Lovett. I was surprised when I looked through that. That's the first time you run Lovett, right?
Yeah, it is, man, and it's beautiful. And I know you've had some great success out there, and
Yeah.
isn't it beautiful?
I
And it's
love
like
it. That's a great race, a great course. Yeah.
it's such a cool vibe, and
Yes.
I really enjoyed it, and I do plan to go back. I don't know if I will next year. Hopefully, I still sort of have my eye on the course record,
Yeah.
and but I love it. Setting that aside, just being out there, great folks, and it's sneaky beautiful.
Yes.
The night start can
Yeah.
get you,
I was going to bring that up.
particularly for me. Like you, I've already said that I don't love um, running at dark, and I can tell you a funny story about that. But other than like the night start and just kind of getting your mind around that, remembering that hey, it's a night start, but when that sun comes up,
Yeah.
like there's hope, there's a new day, right?
Yeah.
And like my new mantra, sun comes up, it's time to run strong, run happy,
Yeah.
and it makes you want to.
Yeah.
Like you get that sunrise, and so we had some rain this year, so we didn't get kind of the perfect
Right.
sunrise, but still, the day breaks and it's time to go.
Yeah. It's so hard that night start. Were you able to get
Yeah,
some sleep in during the day Friday to go?
not
Yeah. Same.
really. No, not really.
Yeah.
I tried to just kind of sleep in,
Yeah.
and then it's kind of one thing I'll do, like whether it's full moon or love it, then just kind of hold off on the coffee and just kind of treat the night like a morning, maybe.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
Just kind of like start your day a little later.
Yeah.
Treat have kind of a bigger meal as a few hours before the race. But yeah, just kind of I can't really sleep
Yeah.
in the day like that. Oh, I got to cycle back. So the light story, I dislike, or at least initially, running in the dark so much. Just to push myself from power line, I still, for 4 travelers in a row, I wouldn't get a headlamp
Really?
because I wanted to make
You,
it.
you wanted to make it more.
I wanted to make it back to Winona before pitch black.
Yeah.
And I would incentivize myself to do this. By the way, nobody do
That
this.
could be dangerous. I'm about to say that. You know thyself.
But and it bit me one year. It may have been 17 when I had to run a couple miles in the dark, but just to but you do whatever you can to motivate yourself,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I would do that to push myself into Winona and try to get there before dark. But
That's
anyway,
the things we
yeah.
try. So for
I know, it's like whatever you can do to
yeah.
keep it going, keep it rolling.
So for Love It, I think it was on Bear Mountain, and so for everybody listening, the tagline is it's the Love It, ankles of steel and an iron will. In fact, I'm wearing my shirt, dude. I'm just realizing this.
Yeah.
I'm wearing my Love It shirt. And I actually turned my ankle, I guess pretty bad. I guess about a month before, but I was able to, I didn't have any issues on the course, but I was falling asleep on the trail because of the night and everything. I was like, what is happening? Because I'm normally 100-mile-an-hour, I'm pretty good. And so I found if I just really sprint really fast, you might have heard that on the Love It thing. I just was sprinting as fast as I could with these rocks and everything else. I was like, I'm gonna die, but it woke me up, and just adrenaline.
No, man. I'll plug your podcast too, because I told you off air that I listened to that going into Love It. A lot of great information. I think you spent some time with a couple people.
Yeah.
And I used a lot of that information.
Good.
Some long sessions. But you're right. First of all, isn't it a surreal experience? I've told people this, to fall asleep running.
Yes, it is. It's like people
And
don't understand that.
Way, like everybody out there, we don't mean we fall down.
Yeah.
We mean like we somehow go into like a subconscious mode of running. The first time I remember doing that was Massanutten and out in Virginia. But yeah, you can fall asleep, but still be sort of moving yourself, self-propelled motion.
So weird.
It is surreal, man. It's probably dangerous.
Yeah.
But I know exactly what you're talking about. But I didn't fall asleep at Love It, but I did try to push there back over Bear Mountain.
Yeah. Actually,
probably the only strategic tactical mistake I made all day, because I shed my raincoat. I guess it's like 72 2-ish coming back before you're about to go back over.
Yeah, something. Yeah,
give or take
something like
75.
that. Yeah,
And I shed my raincoat thinking the rain had passed. It's never passed.
of course not.
And I'm doing the same thing just to kind of give myself a boost.
Yeah,
I'm going to sprint a little bit. I'm going to push a little bit because sometimes that can work. Just, try a different, stride it out, kind of reset your mind. But I took off the raincoat and I got pretty bad chills coming back in.
Oh man.
And I did have to reset when I made it back over to Crystal Springs.
Yeah.
I took probably 10, 15 minutes just to save my race and just keep it together.
Really?
I knew the course record was probably out of the picture.
Yeah.
But we did what we needed to do to be safe and to allow me to kind of have an enjoyable, good experience at the end of the race, dealing with those chills. And, it's sometimes the best laid plans, right?
Yeah.
Took off my rain jacket and then it rained.
I think rain is a theme out there. I love it. It's so beautiful and it's so nice. But Cliff and I, he paced me for 30 miles at the end there, and we just it just kept raining, and
I know.
he's like, I was in the pain cave suffering. I know you must have been. I was like, yeah, it was not fun.
Yeah. Maybe the lesson there is it doesn't weigh that much.
Yeah,
yes. Keep your darn rain jacket with you.
Exactly. Stuff it somewhere.
Yeah.
Oh man. Well, Wesley, man, I'm excited to see you watch for Leadville and for you to be back at Traveler. Any other big I don't know, if you had to pick a race, and what's on your bucket list for the future, man?
Well, I'd love to get another bite at Western.
Yeah.
I think I can run fast there.
I think you can too.
I have to have everything come together just like anybody does.
Yeah. You
can control certain things and there's a lot of things outside of your control, but I'd like to get another bite of it.
Yeah.
But bite at it. It left a taste in my mouth.
I like it.
Mostly good, but there was a little bit of some kind of weird aftertaste.
Yeah.
Where I kind of wanted to go back to the laboratory and think about, as I get into my 40s and even into my 50s, what can I do to be smarter, to be stronger, and still sustain a competitive race every now and then. And that's the thing I'm hyper focused on.
I like it.
I think I would love, probably more for just sort of experience, to do UTMB one day. I think that's more because I'd like to take in, or really any major European race, I think would be just kind of a cool experience.
Yeah.
I don't even know from a racing perspective because they've gotten so big and so celebratory.
Yeah.
But I just think it would be neat.
It's beautiful.
And cool.
Yeah.
To be a part of that.
Yeah.
So I hope to do some kind of major race one day, even if it's 20 years from now, like when I maybe have a little bit more time to get over there. Just because I think that would be a cool experience. They love the sport so much, not that we don't, but sort of their culture with the skiing and the mountain culture in some of those towns. It's just so embedded. You see that in some of the Mountain West here as well.
Yeah.
I would like to experience that one day.
It's crazy at UTMB. Last person I had on the podcast, Marianne Hogan, who placed podium.
I know.
She, I had to ask, I was like, how is it you're in these mountains and climbing up and all these crowd of people, you're suffering and there's all these people cheering you on around you. It's just kind of we're used to suffering alone for the most part, and you got just a ton of people everywhere. It looks fun.
Yeah. And we have great races and great support around here with great volunteers, but just to see that many spectators on the trail and generally being pretty respectful, like it's just, it's neat.
Yeah.
It's a neat thing. Yeah, she's a great runner. And I think I saw that Courtney announced she's going to try to do the impossible and go to UTMB after winning Western and Hard Rock and be the first person to ever to win all three in the same summer. So I'll
Dude,
be her biggest cheerleader here in a couple weeks.
dude, I didn't realize that. I hadn't heard that.
She just announced it. I get the impression, David, that it really was. I think she probably had it in the back of her mind. I don't know her,
Right, right.
but I follow her and I'm a fan like
Yeah,
everybody
yeah.
else. But I think she had it in the back of her mind and she decided maybe a once in a life opportunity. I'm going to go for it. And I just freaking love that
I,
mentality because
yeah.
we have to take advantage of the opportunities when they present themselves.
I love her attitude and just the way she presents herself. I got to meet her. You know, she had been finished at Tahoe when I finished, but she was there hanging out, drinking a beer, asking me about how my race was and talking about, you know, I asked her about her future races, and she just loves trying to see what we are capable of and what she's capable of.
I know,
And
man.
I just love that positivity and the way she goes into things, just crushing, man. It's amazing. She's so gifted.
And you've met her in person, talked to her, and like visited with her, but it just feels. She even manages to make social media feel authentic.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. She does. She does.
Like, which is a skill.
Yeah, yes, it
It's
is.
like, um, yeah. So it's really cool to see. And there's other personalities that do that.
Yeah.
I mentioned I'm a huge fan of, like many, of Killian.
Oh
And it's
yeah.
like they make it feel authentic, even across the computer or the screen, and that's really neat. It's inspiring actually,
Yeah.
and it makes you want to try to run joyfully yourself when you
Yeah.
can. At least that's what it kind of makes me want to do.
It does, man. It does. Um, man, well, Wesley, I know you've got stuff going on and everything, man. And but dude, it's been great visiting with you and
Yeah,
actually talking
man.
to you, man. We've shared some trail a little bit, but to get to talk,
Yeah.
and I hope we get to share some trail again. I'll high five you when you're, going back the other way when I'm still going out there, man.
No, I don't know about that. I don't know about that. But man, this is great. I love what you're doing with the show, being informative, having some fun with your guests. So just thanks for inviting me, man. I know some of the names you've had on here too. So I just sincerely appreciate the opportunity to kind of talk a little bit
Oh man.
and chat with you.
Well, thanks for all you do, and really, I see you out there. I see you encouraging others, and you're one of those guys that's real positive, and that's an encouragement to others. And so, man, just you keep doing what you're doing, man. I love watching it, and when we're old men, we'll still be out there trying to do what we can do and having fun doing it, man.
You got that right. I'll say it again, like approaching the sport with a certain amount of seriousness and having fun are
Yes.
not mutually exclusive. Like we can run strong and run happy and like do that at the same time. And it's like I really believe that. And I hope we can do it
Yeah.
for a long time, man.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Well, man, you take care, and I'll be following along, man, for Leadville and Traveler. Kill it, crush it.
Hey, thanks a lot, man. Reach out anytime and I hope we're on the trail together soon.
Me too, brother.